of the Judiciary, whom I understand is standing in for the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much of the committee. I wish to acknowledge the Vice Chair of the Public Accounts Committee, Honorable Jessica Mbalu, the honorable members of the Public Accounts Committee, the head of the Public Service, Dr. Kenya, the Solicitor General, Mr. Ugeto, the PS Treasury, Dr. Muya, the Auditor General, CPA Nancy Gadungu, the Controller of Budget, Dr. Nyakano, the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Director of the EACC, Mr. Twalib Mbarak, senior public officers who are present, good morning. And some matters that have also come on the floor. And as a way of ensuring that the discussion is also put in a way that helps us to move forward, I'll be sharing one or two things that we have been able to do as the judiciary that have helped in terms of ensuring accountability. And so, as I start off, the first thing I'll talk about is the question of automation. Now, as the judiciary, we have implemented the case tracking system and what we call the Judiciary Financial Management System. What this has done is to automate the court operation with the electronic fee assessment, the electronic receipting, and prudent expenditure. And what we have seen since we started this in earnest at the beginning of the last financial year, that is in 2020, this has closed revenue leakages. And we have actually seen growth in revenue even during what was a COVID period. And I'll be sharing some bit of details about the growth, the projection that we have seen over the last 5 years. And so the issue of automation is a big issue, not just for us as the judiciary, but it is something that we highly recommend as part of a business and engineering process in the public sector because of the benefits. Indeed, the initial capital outlay is very high, but the benefits outlast the initial cost. So if we look at the revenue collection, if I could just quickly take you through the last 5 years, and when we talk about revenue collection in the judiciary, we are talking about fines, we are talking about fees, and other miscellaneous collections minimal. So in 2016-17, we had a total of approximately 1.9 billion in the collections. 2017-18, we had approximately 2 billion, 2.08 billion. 2018-19, we had 2.69 billion. 2019-20, it dropped because of COVID. That is from the period of March up to June. So the collection dropped at the end of that financial year to 2.2 billion. And in the just concluded financial year, we saw the revenue go up in spite of COVID to 2.4 billion. And it is remarkable that during this period, we had a number of courts closed, because when we got cases in the different courts where we had a number of staff who are infected with COVID, a reasonable number, we had quite a number of courts closing during that period. And so it is remarkable that in spite of the fact that we had a limited time where courts are operating, the revenue actually went up. With regard to the court providing a facilitative role in dealing with matters that touch on public property, the comment I would make here is that there has been a very robust ongoing consultation between the judiciary and other sector agencies that are involved in the justice matters. This through the auspices of the National Council on the Administration of Justice, which is chaired by the Chief Justice. In fact, in their inaugural meeting, that was one of the agendas, just to discuss how can matters that touch on corruption be expedited. So that is one area that we are very keenly putting our sights on, because we acknowledge and recognize that the fight against corruption is a multi-pronged, it requires a multi-pronged approach. And so, under the auspices of the NCJ, this is one area that we will seek to pursue very actively. There was mention of exchequer releases, I think, in the presentation by the chair. And just like all agencies, we are also partially affected by this, but we must make a mention that there has been an improvement in the last 2 financial years, for which we are grateful as the judiciary. On the issue of IFMIS, again, a lot has been said about this, and there is room for certain items to be improved, but I must point out that with regard to the payroll items and the interest processing, as a judiciary, we are happy that there has been an enhancement on that particular platform. So that has been a positive development. And we, as I mentioned, we have our judiciary financial management system. We are working very closely with the National Treasury to integrate what we call the JFMIS and the IFMIS for seamless transaction flow. The biggest challenge, however, is that the IFMIS system, the fluctuations sometimes that occur, like last year we had a big issue. The transaction processing was closed from October to around February, and so it impacted quite negatively on the issue of budget utilization. On the question of budget management, as I draw to a conclusion, the opening of budget funds in quarters many times delays the procurement process in cases where the budgeted activities are not uniformly distributed in quarters. So where they're distributed in quarters, that there is no problem, because then activities are done when the quarter comes. But there are certain procurable things or services that require to be done at a go. And so where that is the case, that brings some delays. And we have been engaging with the National Treasury just to see how that is dealt with. And we know that that is an area that can also be improved. Finally, on the issue of court awards, we fully support and agree with what the Solicitor General said. I think it is time that we put our heads together and see what solution can be found. We have interest on court awards that have already been given. Interest is piling, and what that means is that we are losing money as a country. So it is important that once and for all, we put our heads together, ensure that funds are allocated so that those awards are paid out, and we sort out that matter. With those few remarks, Chair, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ndemo. Another round of applause for him. I'm now pleased to invite the Chief Executive Officer of the EACC, Mr. Twalib Barak, to come and share with us very, very briefly. Welcome.
Thank you very much, the Chairman PSC, Dr. Joseph Kinyo, the Head of Public Service, the DPP, Mr. Nuruddin Haji, the PS Treasury, Mr. Muya, the Auditor General, CPA Nancy Gidungu, Dr. Martin Kongo, the Controller of Budget, Mr. Kennedy Oguto, the Solicitor General, Mr. Paul Ndemo, the Deputy Registrar Judiciary. Actually, we'd like to thank the PSC for inviting us to this forum, because the issues that are being addressed here are very pertinent. I was wondering with my PA, what is the role of the EACC in this forum? Are we being here to be grilled? Are we being here to ask questions? So I said, being an ex-military officer, I'll not accept to be ambushed. And instead I will ambush those who invited us. Luckily, the issues that are being addressed are extremely pertinent in this country. We are in a cycle of blame game. Oh, the Treasury is not doing this. The legislative is not doing this. The EACC is not working. The police is not working. The DPP is not working. The judiciary is not working. And that is not a solution. The solution is to see, where are we? If you fall in a ditch and you are down there starting blaming that wewe ndio ulifanya nikaanguka hapa ndani, will it help you to come out? It won't. The solution is, how did we arrive here and how can we come out of this place? That is the solution. So we have been listening. We've been talking about quite a number of issues, and all these issues revolve around integrity. We are told when you are trying to hire somebody, look at his professionalism, the energy to do the work, and integrity. But if the last is lacking, forget about everything. Dr. Kinyosa, we have systems. We have systems in the national government. We have systems in the county government, but they are not respected. What do you do with that? When you hear staff have been employed in a county, and the report comes that all of them have got fake academic certificates, and there's a service board in that county to oversee the employment of those staff. When you arrest those young officers, young staff, you bring them to EACC, they are between 25 years and 35 years. When they are writing statement, they are crying. You ask them what happened. I was told by my MCA that the county is employing staff and I should go to River Road and get fake certificates. And then plans will be done for us to be employed. That is how we were employed. So this young man or young lady, he has worked in that county for 3 years. The total amount of salary he or she has been paid is about 3 million. And then the law says EACC to recover that amount. Kasichana 30 years, kamekula mshahara amounting to 2 million in 4 years. I am saying refund. Atatoa wapi pesa? Is it workable? No, is it workable? A young man who is 31 years, then you ask, do I charge this young man or the service board? There's no law for that. You get a project in a county, Maram Road, they've been done. amounting to about 400 million, 500 million, then you get information that those companies that did the work were associated with politicians. But because of fear of conflict of interest, they use third parties. Leta kampuni yako tutakupatia kazi, tushaongea na governor. Then when you go there, you are told that company just dropped 2 lorries of mchanga under the guise that the Maram Road was done. When you want to investigate as EACC, they tell you, yes, we did, but mvua iliosha hiyo barabara yote. Now, how do I take that case to Nurdin? Definitely I'll lose. The catchword is integrity. There's no integrity. You go and see substandard projects. At the end of the day, all the counties are washed with substandard projects. As EACC, I have 2 valuers. Where do I take them and where do I not take them? Dr. Muya will tell me my budget is 3.2 billion. He has increased it by 200 million. I want to add stuff. I cannot. I wake up, my valuer tells me I'm resigning because I'm not well paid by EACC. I wake up, there's advert in the judiciary. They want more judges. Half of my lawyers have applied. And they know they get the job because judiciary really values lawyers from EACC. SRC tells me you can't give, is it called special allowance or Karuga, how do you call it? Non-practicing allowance. We are the only government institution where lawyers are not getting non-practicing allowance because SRC have refused. They say we are overpaid. It's the only institution in government that since 2005, it has never had an increment of salary. I've even complained to JLAC because SRC says our staff are overpaid since 2005. So we should wait to catch up with other government agencies. It's like somebody who has been employed somewhere in Karen and you're saying, sasa unajua huyu mzungu alikuwa anakulipa pesa mingi, wait until you catch up, hao wengine, then you're paid. So what end up with EACC? We are losing key staff in the organization because of these challenges. But let us talk about IFMIS. Let us talk about systems. We do system review as EACC. Unfortunately, the law is very weak. We cannot enforce. I'll keep on talking about the NYS1. We said the solution to NYS is to become an autonomous organization. The Devolution Ministry at that time was reluctant to implement for their own reason. You understand what I'm talking about. And then NYS2 took place. So, we are talking of automation, and Demo has talked about it. Automation is the biggest solution in leakages in government. But even EAC says we are not able to automate because Treasury give us 10 million to do automation. Dr. Muya, I employ investigators, they have to wait to share laptops to do their work. When I'm applying to buy about 50 laptops, financial year is closing, the supplier said because of COVID, there's a global shortage of laptops. And they are not coming. Then the law says I must return the money to Treasury. Sijatumia. So I return the money, and the supplier is remaining with the letter of offer. He could not supply. Nobody wants to hear about that challenge because the law must be followed. So sometimes the law are too strict that they are entangling us. We are in trouble. We are talking about investigation in counties. Projects, they're running into billions. And you hear 80% of the amount has been paid. When you go on the ground, it's only 30% of the work that has been done. How can such thing happen if there is no collusion between finance, between supply chain, and between the executive of that entity? You are talking of missing documents. You hear there's an irregular payment that has been done. You write to a ministry, you demand for these documents. You are told they cannot be found. How do we go about that? You are talking of dummy projects. You hear in counties, there's an upgrade of an ICT system. When you go there, there's nothing on the ground. So, what are we talking about? Honorable Wandai has talked about remittance. It is so unfortunate. Many state institutions, they deduct that NSSF, what you call pension, whatever, is not remitted. How do we deal with that? You remember very well about the cemetery scandal. 384 million was misused. The culprits were found guilty, they were jailed, but did we recover a coin out of that? We didn't get a coin out of that. We never recovered a coin. So what we are saying here is we must look at preventive mechanism. If MIS is being abused, how do we go about it? An interesting development we have here, I don't want to go on reading a speech, but the practicality of the challenges that are there on the ground that affect our office, affect the DPP, and affects the judiciary. And at the end of the day, the people who support us is the parliament and, of course, the central government. As much as we call ourselves an independent commission, we can't work without treasury, we can't work with the office of the head of public service, we can't work with the MPs. We need support, and it should not be about ESCC. Yes, I can investigate cases effectively. If the DPP is overstretched, where will my cases go to? They'll remain with him. If the judiciary does not have an elaborate, quick system, and I should not be mistaken, because I know there are journalists here, they may say, judiciary is the main obstacle. Now you're creating war between the ESCC and judiciary, and we work very well with them. We are saying there must be a mechanism of streamlining the automation system. If we are doing system reviews, there must be a way of enforcing such system review. We have counties where you find that the models of employment is not as per the laid down regulation in the central government. You are, as head of a department in the county, you are under the mercy of a governor. We even have intelligence that some senior county officials have written undated resignation letters. So that when the governor wakes up and he doesn't like you, the counties are fighting. We are not seeing streamlining of the systems and improvement. But all this, as the election time approaches, is an issue of the integrity. What type of people are you electing? If you elect Manambas, then you expect to have this kind of problems, because a county has got a lot of resources, and devolution will help this country, but unless we streamline, we are going to have a problem. On the issue of budget, I think ESCC, DPP, judiciary, we need to have more than what we are getting right now. The budget for the ESCC is 3.2 billion. 69% of that budget goes to allowances and salaries. The 31% goes to, our mandate goes beyond investigation, public awareness, prevention. So you find that out of that 31%, 80% goes to investigation. Court cases, there's a case in Kisumu. My lawyer, who was there before, has been transferred to Nakuru or Eldoret. He will take an air ticket. The second day you find him in the office, what happened? Oh, remember, debt has been moved to another debt. And that's a lot of money that goes on. Prevention. We have the best system of doing corruption risk assessment and system reviews. We need a law, Honorable Ondai, whereby ESCC can be allowed to do enforcement and monitoring of those recommendations. Otherwise, out of that, we'll have a problem. The Commission also has some common problems which are cut across other government agencies. Of course, budgeting is a problem, and this war called corruption sometimes is very highly politicized. If you take to court certain personalities, you are told you're being misused by the sitting government. Or if you take the other side, people may think that you have changed loyalty to the other side. Now it becomes a little bit very difficult to navigate. And the media is very good at twisting at that. And then you talk about interference of evidence. We have several counties where we have experienced very unique fires. The fire catches the supply chain office, it jumps the social service office, but inaenda nashika treasury, mali ya pesa. So you wonder, hii moto mbona iliruka from that side, na hapa katikati hakuna moshi? You know it's sabotage. People burn documents, and it becomes a very big problem. You head nowhere with such cases. So we are talking of support from other government agencies, and that support can only be very effective if government agencies are automated. Right now we have a good way of communicating with KRA, judiciary, DPP, but we can't do if other government agencies are not fully automated. So with those remarks, I think this was a very, very crucial meeting. We don't want to appear that EACC is here just to go get people to write statements for the purpose of taking them to court. We are looking at the preventive aspect, which is very crucial, and the preventive aspect cannot be successful if we don't work with Treasury, we don't work with the office of Dr. Kinyo, we don't work with our MPs, because at the end of the day, this is a political government which have got legitimate representatives through the masses, and we plead with you that those gaps, legal gaps that sometimes give us a problem, we need to streamline them. Because if you look at the issue that people keep on asking us, why did you clear these politicians to vie for this seat? I'm sorry, I know there are a lot of politicians now. But the problem is, the Constitution says you can only be barred from occupying a public office when all legal avenues have been addressed. So you have somebody with a fake Form 4 certificate, he vies, he becomes an MP, and the case is in court. You cannot bar that person because all legal avenues have not been approached. Now you can imagine, as EACC, we have arrested that guy, then tomorrow that guy is a member of PSC. He's grilling me. He's grilling me. Or he's a member of JLAC. He's grilling me. Do you think he's going to be friendly to me? Knowing that ESCC has got a case with him out there. So there are quite a number of issues that need both political approach and the executive approach. With those remarks, thank you very much for inviting us, and we look forward to work with you.
Makofi kwa Bwana Twalib Barak. Thank you very much for your remarks. I now wish to invite the Director of the Public Prosecution, Mr. Nurdin Haji. Mr. Nurdin Haji will be talking to us on issues that pertain to his office and the matters that have arisen in the course of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. The Chairman, PSC, Honorable James Wandani, the Head of Public Service, Zekinwa, the Auditor General, CPA Nancy Garungu, PS Treasury, Mr. Muya, Controller of Budget, Dr. Mario Tango, the Solicitor General, Mr. Geto, Director and CEO EACC, Mr. Twalib Barak, the Deputy CRJ, Mr. Ndemo, honorable members,
Good morning. Thank you. I want to thank the Parliamentary Committee for inviting us here today to come and discuss this very important subject of matters, policy and the audit cycle. I just want to be careful so that I don't become repetitive. I'll try to address the areas that were pointing towards us, so that I don't run the risk of making myself an expert in financial matters. I think I will start with where my colleague, Mr. Mbarak, began, the issue of finding solutions. And I think if we are very frank to ourselves, we all know the solutions. However, the question is whether we are serious in applying them and ensuring that the system works. And I think one of the biggest problems is we have the crab effect, where we know the solutions, we know how we can get out of that hole, but when you try, either the rope is cut or you're pulled down by your colleagues and or individuals that are meant to be there to help you. Issue of accountability and governance framework is I think, very well laid down in the Constitution and the various legislations that we have. However, the problem is sometimes that these pieces of legislations are there not to be applied, but to have them as very beautiful documentations that are hardly followed or adhered to. And I think the issues that were raised by the chair in terms of the audit makers and the process itself, I think Parliament has the greatest role in ensuring that PFMA is adhered to by all of us, whether it is Treasury or the ODPP or the ESCC. And if Parliament itself is not able to honestly apply and ensure that the rules are followed, then of course we will all fall behind and also not be able to do it. So, to be frank to each other, if we were to adhere to the Constitution and the various legislations that we have and acts of Parliament, then this should not be an issue. For example, Office of the Controller of Budget would not have an issue in enforcing the systems if the whole cycle is followed through. And my brother, the ESCC, the CEO, gave very good examples of what is happening down, for example, in the county where the control of budget seems to be having a big problem. We have charged a number of 9 governors, for example, and they're still all in office, and they still have oversight in the IFMIS system. They are able to exploit those windows without any shame. But then the question is, where is the problem? And we all know, and I'm sorry if I'm being rude or being disrespectful to honorable members, and I think it rests on Parliament. If Parliament was able to demand, both the Senate and the National Assembly, if it was able to demand that such individuals step aside, then we will not see that problem. However, everybody now understands that the cycle is vicious and it has no effect whatsoever, even when we take them to court. Even when you get a conviction, as the CEO said, you get your appeal, you are back, and you are back in business. You exploit the IFMIS system, you don't follow the procurement plan, you prioritize your own pocket first, not development for the sake of the people that you're representing. So the question is, do we continue having these meetings and continue lamenting, yet the laws are there for us to effect them? The Constitution itself provides that a state officer and a public officer, which includes all of us here, including members of Parliament, if indeed we are honest, you should be able to step aside. The Auditor General will continue pointing it out, but because her role is only to point out, and she really needs, I think, in my opinion, she really needs some teeth to be able to say, if you have an audit query, then you should step aside. If you have an audit query, you are not fit to run a financial system or process. However, she will do her best, she will bring the reports, then nothing happens. For myself, for example, I cannot prosecute anything based on her reports. We still have to take it to an investigating authority, whether it is the ESCC or the National Police Service, for me to be able to prosecute. I wish there was a piece of legislation that would allow her to have a certain cadre of investigators, or her report to be considered as being equivalent to an investigated matter, so that I can be able to prosecute based on her report. But unfortunately, that is not the case. Again, it rests on Parliament. You can be able to look at the different legislations to ensure that we are able to deliver and do this. The issue of IFMIS, for example, and I think the chair talked about automating asset, the fixed asset register. But look at IFMIS. That is an automation of a financial system, but we still have a problem. Automation will not give us the solutions unless you have the right people in the right place, individuals who are honest and individuals who have integrity. But if we have those systems and we still have individuals who do not have any integrity and are not honest, we will not be able to achieve anything. So, Honourable Chair and Members of Parliament, I think it starts with integrity, and we can be able to enforce integrity if we are serious, and if we intend to police the issue of integrity. And that's the only way then audit reports, it's the only way then prosecution and investigations will be able to be effective and will be able to give the effect that Kenyans desire. In the absence of that, we will not be able to do anything. PSC reports, for example, if you look at Section 13 of Parliament's of Parliament privileges, parliamentary privileges, I think, I can only use it as evidence for corroboration. I can only use it as the report as something that corroborates an investigation that has been undertaken. And I can only use it if the Speaker allows me to use it. So your reports, of what value are they if a certain member in PSC is involved? Of course, I will never get it. And I will always be, as ESCC rightly put it, we will always be intimidated and will have reservations of how much we can share with the different parliamentary committees. The issue of, for example, of defense and national security. This is a very, very important and key sector. How do we allow the parliamentary committees, for example, to be able to scrutinize that when there is no vetting process of the members themselves? Yeah? You already have questionable integrity within maybe one or two members. In other countries, like the US and the UK, members of committees are thoroughly vetted. Names are presented by the various parliamentary parties, and then they are vetted. But now, when you know that certain members of the committee are under investigations or are subject of investigations, or how do you open up such an important sector? So we really need to be honest in how we approach these issues for us to be able to be effective and for us to be able to find solutions. So prosecutions, investigations, audit will never be effective if we don't have integrity on the system. And I'm not being, please don't get me wrong, kesho musinichape, ama munikataze budget. I hope this was just a frank process for us to find solutions. Then we have, for example, application of orders, where individuals can run to parliament and get can run to the judiciary and get indefinite orders. Then the government is not able to be effective. We are not able to do what we're supposed to do. I cannot prosecute, we cannot investigate. The various ministries are not able to deliver what they're expected to deliver. So again, it comes back to Parliament. Can we have clear legislation under the CPC and criminal procedures and others that stipulate very clearly that such orders should not be there for more than 21 days before they are dealt with, or 14 days? Because we have individuals, for the last 3 years, we cannot do anything. We can't prosecute, we can't investigate, we are stuck. Yet, you have adverse audit reports on those individuals. You had even adverse PAC committee reports, but you just become a lame duck individual. I think research is very important. How do we, as Parliament, as other, like the big nine that you've called here, how can we work together, research, and come up with appropriate tools that we can apply to ensure that we are effective in oversighting the various mandates that we've been given. I think jurisprudential development is very important, and this, of course, as you've said, we need to coordinate and collaborate. The judiciary will be one key sector in ensuring that they assist, even in the question of stepping aside. I know sometimes wao wenyewe wanaogopa wakisema hivyo, that it will apply to the judge and the magistrate, but we just have to, for the sake of this country and for the sake of finding solutions, we must bite the bullet. I just don't want to risk myself in being repetitive on what others have said. I think, sir, with those few remarks, you will allow me to thank you all once again for giving me this opportunity. And I want to commit ourselves as ODPP to work together and find the solutions that are desired for the sake of Kenyans. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you very much, Bwana DPP, Mr. Nurdin Haji. Let's give him another round of applause. We are basically coming close to the very end. And therefore, I'll be calling upon, at this juncture, the Principal Secretary in charge of National Treasury, Dr. Julius Muya, to come forward and make his remarks. Maybe I'd not mention that after Dr. Muya and the Director General and the Head of Public Service, we shall have a very short plenary session where our members will also now contribute, and we shall have issues coming from other sectors as well before we can wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman of Public Accounts Committee, the Head of Public Service, Dr. Joseph Kinga, FCPA, Nancy Lavungu, Auditor General. I want to recognize my colleague, Ken Ogeto, the Solicitor General, Margaret Nyakango, Controller of Budget, Bwana Nordin Haji, who has just spoken, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Tolib Barak, the CEO of EACC, and I want to recognize Washmiwas who are here and everybody who has joined us today. Chairman, Head of Public Service, I want to appreciate this opportunity to make a few remarks. But firstly, let me say that as National Treasury, we received an invitation to participate in this event, and we were given specific issues to respond to. And so, Chair, with your permission, before I respond to the issues, let me just say something in general which would define the tone of my remarks. The one thing that we are seized of in the National Treasury is the responsibility of ensuring that the financial systems that are used in the public sector are sound and they provide accurate information, among other responsibilities that we have. And so one of the key focus areas that we've been having is the area of looking at the quality of the systems, the financial systems that we have. And that quality is defined in a lot of ways, which has been the thrust of our focus. One of them has been just automation, just to make sure that we reduce the extent of manual intervention as possible. Now, as we have been automating, what we have been careful to do is to ensure we achieve systems optimization. And I say so because if you optimize the improper systems, the improper procedures, then the rule of garbage in, garbage out will apply. And so we are very careful to ensure that we achieve what we call systems integration, so that we reduce the extent of silos in the systems as possible, so that we achieve a systems interoperability, and so that as we are implementing new modules, they are able to talk to the older modules, and we are improving on what we have. And so granted, the software that we've been using is the one that we call IFMIS. And I think for a while since we started implementing IFMIS, what we have been doing is to make sure that we stabilize the system. And as we have been stabilizing the system, we have now reached the point of looking at modules that are implementable within the IFMIS architecture. And we are going to see, Chair, a lot of rollout of those modules that in the past we have not been able to implement because we were dealing with stabilizing the system. And so what we've also learned, which also is important for us to pick from here, is that there's also merit in using a lot of our own resources because we have a fair number of ICT experts in the country. And we are using those ICT experts to help us in the